from different various background. But I will be sharing more about how we can help as a community later on in my slides. Maybe we can get more input from various background. I trust people are very much uncomfortable to talk about it. Sometimes we can also see that media use unethical way to report about suicide too. Yes, yes, Dr. Jamila, I can say that we can see this news about the recent loss of Isha that Najla shared earlier on, how her suicide was actually a play for social media, and they somehow made it like a big chaotic thing where they blamed her, although she was the victim of cyberbullying. So I think that is also one of the cause why people don't really want to report about suicides. So if the video is ready, we can play the video.
I don't understand why people don't talk about it. I'm not ashamed that my daughter chose that way to not be here. I'm grief-stricken that she's not with me.
I'd left my phone in my room and I had 45 missed calls and I felt powerless.
It was so shocking and so unbelievable, but also before I'd even taken the call, my phone lit up and I knew what the call was about.
I woke up the next morning to two policemen banging on my bedroom window. So I let them inside and they sat me down and they told me that my sister had been found.
I wanted to double check everything, that the right name came up.
The police sergeant started talking to me, and as soon as he started talking to me, it was just like my heart had ripped in two.
It wasn't until quite a bit of time afterwards that the dust began to settle and you kind of realise what's happened.
Physical feeling of going, no, that's my daughter. My daughter is gone.
I got to a point on Jared's birthday where I was worried about myself.
I felt like going to join her.
All the first birthday, the first New Year's, the first Christmas, it all just hits you when you least expect it.
My heart's never felt the same. It was a physical feeling of having a part of me taken away.
I developed agoraphobia, I developed severe anxiety and general anxiety disorder. I developed depression worse than I ever have in my entire life.
Comes and goes in waves of feeling from sadness to, yeah, just of course missing her.
If you can just imagine one night where you've stayed up crying yourself to sleep over someone that's broken your heart, every single time that's happened, all at once. And the feeling's never really gone away.
It broke my heart.
I think the biggest thing that I've taken from this experience is the sort of fragility of life, particularly when it comes to mental ill health and not having services around you.
That mental health is not a weakness.
People to this day are still sweeping this under the rug. People are still not talking about it. People are still pretending it's not happening.
There's nothing wrong about that speaking out. There's nothing wrong with having a cry. There's nothing wrong with having a hug. And it's not weak to speak.
So I think dialogue is the key. I think conversation is the key. I think asking your friends if they're okay and then listening is the key.
It's really made me realise how important it is to reach out to any loved ones, to talk about things more, express feelings and just be there for each other.
My entire baseline of who I am has changed. She was my only sibling, so She was my best friend for 20 odd years.
I feel like I'm not the same person as I was, and I think a lot of people expect you to kind of bounce back to become the same person, but I'm never going to be them again. My whole experience of life has changed.
I don't think it's ever going to be normal for me.
And if this reaches just one person who was just like me, I just want them to know that they're not alone.
You're not thinking about what you leave behind, but the aftermath just goes on forever.
Look after yourselves, look after each other, and life's really short. Just enjoy it.
So that was a video about, somebody who had to lose someone to suicide. And next, I will be sharing on why is it importance of ongoing support for suicide loss survivors. Maybe in the next slide. So from this video, there are a few things that I have found. The common theme is that the importance is it as a crisis prevention. So regular follow-up care reduces the risk of future mental health crises, including suicidal thoughts. And we can also be there as an emotional healing. Therapy supports grief processing, helping individual manage complex emotions like guilt and sadness. Next, building resilience. Ongoing support fosters coping strategies and emotional strength. Reducing isolations. When you see somebody who has lost to a suicide loss survivor, you have to have continued care to combat the loneliness, to reduce the stigma associated with suicide. And then you must provide them assistance by addressing their needs, help navigate practical and emotional challenges, everyday life basically, such as or relationship issues. So we be there just to support them addressing what they need. And of course, as a long-term wellness, so that we can sustain support which promotes lasting mental health and prevents setbacks. Because suicide loss survivors has the tendency to develop serious mental health issues. And, we providing our support, we can help to mitigate that. The next slide, please. I would like to talk about the importance of family support because family is the closest that we have. So if we experience somebody from a suicide, family will be there as an emotional anchor. As far as family offers stability, reassurance, reducing feelings of abandonment and grief. And oftentimes, family reduce mental health stigma by opening up a communication, by normalizing mental health discussion. And hopefully, by having an open communication, we can encourage help seeking to create supportive environment for healing. Then the next part would be by strengthening the bonds. Family unity minimize isolation and guilt and creating a network of shared support. The fourth part would be cultural and religious significance. In Malaysia, religious practices like prayer and rituals offer comfort and reinforce familial solidarity during healing. Next slide. So, the importance of family support, it encourages to have open communication and support within families to reduce isolation, right? And it also helps to, hold on, yeah. Okay, sorry. Okay, so we can help to build a non-judgmental environment where family members feel safe to share their feelings. So what you can do as a family member is that just create a safe space for them without judgment, without having any um, opinion. unbiased opinion. Just create a safe space where they can share their feelings. And as family members, what we can do is that we routinely check in to reduce isolation and keep suicide loss survivors feeling connected. Sometimes what we can do is just sit there beside them. You don't have to even speak a word. You just have to sit there and show them that you are there, to make sure that they feel a connection, to understand that there is somebody who cares about me. And the third part would be families should promote seeking professional support while offering their own, because sometimes there's only a certain amount of help that a family can give. And if you think that, I'm no longer available of providing the support, it's okay. You can guide them to get professional help so that they can reduce survivors' burden. Next. And how about the local community? What we can do? We can also provide community support. Communities are crucial in postvention efforts. Okay, so by providing direct and culturally relevant support, sometimes all of us are engaged in multiple communities. We have our own groups, we have our own, you know, uh, where we meet people with our same mindset and so on. So this community is somebody who is quite direct to us, who understands us culturally, and they can provide us support that is just right for us. And community members have personal connections with affected individuals, fostering trust and emotional closeness. Sometimes it's easier to get support and also to provide support for the suicide loss survivors uh, when they have already a personal connection with you. Next, local leaders in mental health, for instance, like train local leaders like imam, ketua kampung, or village heads to promote mental health awareness. And their influence help normalize discussion about mental health within the local population itself. So sometimes you can hear, like in Friday prayers about the khutbah and so on. If they can talk about suicide loss survivors, the postvention, it will be really helpful. And thirdly, education campaigns. And we've been talking about how to get therapy and what we can do. And mostly all this is quite available in the urban area. How about the rural? So what we can do is that we can also target rural areas where professional mental health services are limited. We can also organize like workshops, awareness programs, and informations dissemination on mental health issues. Usually, education campaigns as such can be done by NGOs, and we can also have volunteer to the NGOs to help with these education campaigns. Next, we can also create like events in religious institutions. We can collaborate with mosques, church, temples to host events encouraging open conversation about mental health. These are the ways how we can keep that conversation going. As per our hashtag, start the conversation. I think as part of the community, we should start the conversation by involving in uh, roles like such. Next slide. All right. So here are the recent community engagement that I have found. All right. And some of the community engagement are mostly like a webinar, like a dialogue. And this was interesting, nature connection. And this was unfortunately done on the 1st of September, a few days ago on Sunday to provide suicide prevention, and they would like to have a walk in Bukit Jalil Park. So things like this will be really helpful if you either would like to participate, would like to bring a suicide loss survivor along, or you would like to volunteer. It will be highly encouraging. And how about the upcoming events? Do we have any upcoming events? Well, as for now, I did find an upcoming event. How about the next slide, please? All right, so this is the upcoming event, which is tomorrow. This is not sponsored by Miasa, but this is what I could find on the recent news about Real Conversations, where it's a special episode about World Suicide Prevention Day, changing the narrative on suicide, where a father's love, the son remembered there is healing even at the deepest loss. So if you like to, watch or you would like to join this conversation, it will be highly encouraging. Next. Next slide, please. All right. So, I've been telling you what we can do, and as a family and as a community member, but how are we going to sustain it? So these are the things that I think might sustain, and this based on the few research that I have found as well. So one thing that you can do is you can have an ongoing evaluation. So what we can do is that we can gather feedback, surveys, and discussion about postvention. Continuously check on how well postvention programs are working. You know, I heard one of my friends say this earlier on. We don't really hear much about postvention, right? So we can track long-term effects on mental health and community support. And by gathering feedback, we can get regular input from survivors and community members through surveys and discussion. We can also review case studies, like for instance, Isha's case study, right? We can take her dad as a case study for us to see how we can improve cyberbullying and reduce suicide in the future. Next, we can also do collaboration. We can work together with partners of government bodies, NGOs, religious groups to build effective support system. Collaborate with the Ministry of Health and organization like Miasa. For instance, just now I showed the poster by Miasa. Befriend us and share examples of effective collaborations. Sometimes everybody have their own way of managing a suicide loss. So by collaborating with NGOs and so on, you can share your experience, which might be helpful for somebody who just experienced or somebody who is still grieving, right? And they can demonstrate how teamwork actually improves support. And the third part would be more technical. I would say technical because this would be more towards somebody who like to conduct research and to develop um, new ways, invest in research to explore new methods and approaches for postvention and mental health support. Like I mentioned earlier on too, like we rarely, I wouldn't say rarely, but it's not as much as suicide prevention. Suicide prevention is widely known, whereas suicide postvention is not as widely known as suicide prevention. So that's why I think it's important for us to develop and test new interventions, new ways that we can help, suicide loss survivors. And based on research and design, we can always apply like latest findings and trends and adjust to the current state. Okay, and next slide, please. All right. So, when we started this postvention webinar, we actually took some time to ask few questions in our social media, mostly from Instagram. And some of the questions that came in were quite similar. And here are the questions. I've grouped it into four parts. The first question was, how can I support someone who has lost a loved one to suicide? Just now, even in the comment section, somebody said that, how can I help? So The answers to the question is that, next slide. So, as an individual, what we can do is that we can be present, we listen without judgment, and offer emotional support. Despite of different cultural values, different races, different backgrounds, as humans, we can just be there and provide and encourage open discussions about grief and loss and help them seek professional assistance if needed. Like Najla said earlier on, and also Kin, avoid making assumptions and offering solutions. Sometimes just being there is enough. Next question. Is it common to feel guilty after losing someone to suicide? Yes. Guilt is a common emotion, unfortunately. You know, many survivors wonder if they could have done something differently, if they could have provided more support, if they could have been more present. But it is important to remember that suicide is complex. First, to understand why suicide happens, only those who are deceased could answer. And unfortunately, we are unable to get that answer from the deceased. What we can do is that we can often what we can do as suicide loss survivors is that we seek therapy and can help process these feelings and move on with our life. Next. How do I talk to my family about suicide loss? Well, first, yes, it is a very difficult topic to start, especially suicide, because it deals with somebody who just passed away. You can approach the conversation with openness and honesty. You can just tell them, I understand what you have been through, and I'm here to help you. As simple as that. And you can create a safe space, like I mentioned earlier, for all family members to share their emotions without judgment. Encourage seeking external support if needed. Emphasize the importance of family unity in healing. It's interesting because I wanted to mention this earlier on. I was researching how a family can unite, especially in term when there's a suicide or death, right? It's beautiful that in Malay cultures, even in Hindu cultures and Chinese cultures, we have funerals where we gather all our families and all of the immediate family members, extended family members, friends, neighbors come together to show that they respect the disease, they show their love and their condolences. And that's very important for us because that's the part of healing. Next slide. The last question would be, why don't we hear a lot about postvention? I've been mentioning this just now, earlier on. This is because of stigma and cultural discomfort. Like Dr. Jamila also mentioned earlier on in the chat box that it often prevents about open discussion on suicide and postvention. Many are unaware of postvention support. And talking about suicide can bring up guilt and pain. Guilt and pain. Resources for postventions are limited, which more focus on prevention and crisis intervention. In some cultures, including parts of Malaysia, seeking mental health support may be viewed as a weakness. And I can say that until today, some of our clients and some of the people that we know, they don't want to seek mental health support, especially with a professional, because they are scared of being labeled. So maybe now we can open up to the next part, whereby you might have a lot of questions regarding all the all the details that we have shared. If you can share your questions, then maybe we would like to answer it in hoping that we can create conversations. And can we go to the Slido so that they can drop the questions? Okay, so if you have any questions, just drop in the box and we will try to answer it. Hopefully, we can get the conversation going. Okay, I'll wait for the questions. I can see that people are typing. What to do if we really happy to see what you see.